Hello, my name is Matthew, and this is that dog painting that I was working on. About a month ago, I made a video of my first session working on this painting, about an hour's worth of work or something like that. And it sat here for a month on this easel across from my orange chair where I do my reading. I would stare at it, but I didn't take my paints out. But this is a commission. I had the day off, and I had to get the paints out and see what I could do. So this is 2, 3 hours worth of work, but the second time that I've touched it since that last video. If I can remember, I'll leave a link to that if it's of any interest. But I thought I would talk about where I am right now. You can see there's a signature, which is tentative. But what it's like to work on the second session of a painting. The first session, the first video I made, doing a critique, I talked a lot about broad strokes, composition, proportion, arranging these large shapes using large brushes in order to get a framework, a basic layout of where the painting needs to go. In a second session, it's all about tightening everything up, seeing those little differences, mistakes, or proportions that aren't working quite right, and getting everything where it really needs to be after you've done kind of that broad work. So the ears, for example, I feel like are much better than the first session. They have that same shape and feel like the same size, but they're not identical. It's not just a mere reflection one way or another. I totally changed not only the background, but my conception of how I imagined the painting, how I imagined the background to be. My initial thought, because I love this black patterning. So there's these big, beautiful black eyes of the dog, and then the black snout, and then the black pattern on the center portion of the jowls. And I thought, what I want to do is have a painting that's completely pale. Everything is going to be white with those light blues and greens, and it's going to be faded and watered down, including the background. So my idea was, if you saw it in a room, if you walked in, you would see this black pattern here, and the rest of it would wash out. You could walk up to the painting and see that it's a beautiful little dog. That was my idea. And part of working on any kind of artistic endeavor, any project, is pivoting and deciding, is this working on the canvas? And there are decisions to be made, because I could go down one path and work it through and get to what I thought was a good idea. And it could very well work. I made a different decision, which was to make the background much darker. It turns into a more classical idea of a portrait where there's a dark background. You can see it's darker on this side and kind of fades around, and it makes the subject, in this case the dog, pop. And for many reasons, it makes the painting much easier to do. It's much more understandable. It's a format that most people just sort of recognize, and I just made that judgment call. I thought it was better to just have the whole of the dog come out into the foreground. That's the subject. That's what the person that made the commission really wants, is a proper portrait of their dog, and I think it works really well. A main issue that I had with the first session was connecting the head to the body, and there are still some issues that I have. I'll go over that in a second, but I do feel like the head is much more connected to the body. The body feels like a cheat. It sort of gives the illusion of a torso without actually putting in the work, and there's a few reasons for that. So for example, for this perspective, there just should be legs. The forelegs should be apparent in some way. And I had my reference photo, which I did. I had some artistic license with. It was taken as an aerial shot, so the dog is looking up and its body is completely hidden. I made the decision to try to make it look as if we're just looking at the dog straight on while the dog is sitting. So I don't have, in the reference photo, I didn't have the legs there to work on. And so it's a bit of a cheat. The idea is the viewer isn't really going to be focusing on the body. And it's a concession because depending on how long I want to be working on this, inevitably it would have to be addressed. And then you get into the details, which the smaller bits is really the critical body of several sessions of painting. So not so much having the eyes, nose, mouth, ears in the places that they need to be, but setting them in where the the shape or object and the color connect with each shape or object around them in a way that makes sense and brings everything together as a whole. And some of these areas I'm really happy with. The snout, having the black patterning, and then that kind of hooded jowl that hoops over there, and the placement of the eyes. I feel like this section works really well. In portrait painting, that's essentially 90% of the focus of the painting. With a great painter, you can one of the things you can realize straight away is it's not obvious that that's going to be the only section that they were working on. So things like constantly working on the background, adding those layers as you're working on the body, so the surface, the paint surface, is building up together. So I would go back and repaint the background to make sure everything is addressed. And these lines here, and this line is critical, that jowl line. And it's not perfect. These are areas that, as a painter, I start registering my own limitations, or the areas that I could work on and get much better at. Because with painting, you're working with gradation of color, and then dramatic color shifts. It's very rare that you really are going to have a true line the way that you would have a line with a pencil on paper. And so things like that little slit part, very distinctive in dogs, and this dog in particular, I pretty much did just sort of do a line. My work is making it look as if that line doesn't really exist, that it's just a shadow right there. Here, having a line through different color variation to separate the head and the jowl from the body. And we have these like distinctive pink areas. The dog had really fleshy pink bits on its face that you could see right around the jowls, and then that beautiful pink that you see on the inner ear, where the skin is so thin that it's almost translucent. And the ears aren't perfect, but I am happy with the coloring that I got. And right now, I had worked on it for a couple hours, and I knew it was time to have a break, let the painting sit, spend time with it, and then make a decision. I don't want to spend a lot of time with this painting. It is a commission, and more, I'm not as passionate about pulling out all of my paints. It's terrible to say, but that's the difference between a professional artist and a hobbyist. Are you taking those paints out whether you want to or not? I'm not so sure that I am. But the ultimate great, just like the ultimate fun thing to do, one of the best, most satisfying little touches that an artist gets to apply to a canvas are going to be the little white dots on the eyes. And if you've ever painted, worked on a portrait painting, and you'll spend so much time with these kind of dead wooden eyeballs, and you can render them and get it just perfect, and it won't quite be there until you put that little white on the pupil, and the whole entire portrait will come alive. I put them in just for kicks. I wanted to kind of see what I was working with, and it's true. The difference between this painting without those little white dots compared to having them is tremendous. Right now, I'm on the fence. This can dry overnight, and I can turn it in as the finished painting. I might wake up tomorrow and know that there's more work to be done. I'm not so sure. You can let me know what you think. So the second session of the painting, let me know if you have. Let me know what you think of the painting, and let me know if you have any thoughts about anything that I had to say. And so that's it. Please leave a comment if you would like. Thank you for watching, and take care.